Welcome back everybody to Madden 17 News. Today we get to finally talk about franchise. We've been through gameplay improvements, presentation, and a variety of things, but now it's the mode that I and many others focus on every year with Madden. So, there are two articles here actually for franchise mode. I'll be going through both of them in this video. And let me know what you think of these changes in the comments section below. Also, leave a like if you enjoy the video and subscribe for more Madden 17 news videos and all the other content I do here on the channel. I also have a playlist link down below with all of my other Madden 17 news videos. But let's get into the franchise news here today. So first up, we see something that is called Play the Moment. And this is an interesting addition to franchise mode that I think many are really going to like, being able to play franchise mode in smaller chunks but still getting a good experience out of it. So that's where we're going to begin. Play the Moments. This is where you can experience franchise faster than ever. You can jump into game-defining plays, drives, and situations that matter to you, speeding up your experience and delivering more fun. For players who want to span their career the entire 30 years but are limited in time, Play the Moments will be your new way to play. So how does this work? Before heading down to the field, choose between Play the Moments, Offense Only, Defense Only, or the full game. When you choose Play the Moments, the game will be simulated until it detects a key moment and then prompts you to jump right into the action. If you don't want to play that particular moment, you can easily skip it. Choosing Offense Only or Defense Only before loading into the game allows you to easily just play one side of the ball. You'll be able to switch in and out of all the modes easily as you play your game. For example, you can start by playing the full game and then switch to Play the Moments at halftime once you have a sizable lead. So this is an interesting addition because it does offer those who want a shorter experience but still a more authentic one, a happy medium. I do want to try this out, but I don't think I'll be using it at all for my franchise here on my main channel that I do every year. But maybe with Play the Moments I could do something else on like my second channel. I like the sound of it. I just want to see if it is actually fun to play this way. And there's more about the Play the Moments feature, and there are different types of moments that will prompt you to join in. And it's not just individual plays, as you'll find out once I go into this section. As you play the moments, you'll be prompted to jump into all three phases of the game. When your team needs to keep a drive alive on a key third down, you'll be called down to the field to help. Once your team makes it to the red zone, you'll be asked to help punch it in. At the beginning of the game, you may be prompted to play a full drive to get the lead early. In the last 2 minutes of the game and before halftime, your team will call on you to drive down the field and manage the clock. While on defense, you'll be thrown in on third downs to get the ball back, and when the offense makes it into the red zone, you'll be called upon to hold the line. When you need a big punt return to get back in the game, you'll jump in and play. Anytime there is a field goal attempt, you'll jump in to try and block or make the kick yourself. I can see this being enjoyed by those who just want more of a managerial experience. You want to make the roster moves, make the draft picks, but get through a lot of seasons, and this way you could get through games pretty quickly. It says on the earlier screenshot that it's a 20-minute experience. So that's just one way to play franchise mode. Probably not the way I want to play, but it's interesting and I do want to try it out and see what I think. Now with the Play the Moments, obviously there is a lot of simulating, and therefore there is simulation or super sim talk here later in the article. Simulation speed. There are 3 different options for the simulation speed to choose from while the game is looking for the next key moment. By default, you'll be able to follow along using the normal play-by-play option, where you'll see the drive lines draw on the field with a quick recap of each play as it's being simulated. This is the perfect balance between speed and knowing what's going on in the game. If you want to jump to the next moment quickly, you can select the fast option. The third option, which has been a community request, lets you slow down the game so you can watch each play unfold on the field in live action using the broadcast camera. So there's many different ways to simulate, and there has been updated sim logic as we get into the following section. The Super Sim engine is the backbone of this feature, so we've adjusted it to take into account the quarter length you choose. It doesn't matter if you play using 6-minute or 12-minute quarters, the engine will balance itself to try and get close to the 120 play per game NFL average. This change will help ensure play the moment games have a very similar score and stats when compared to the other franchise games around the league. Since we're talking about Super Sim, you'll still be able to jump to the next play, next possession, next quarter, or to the end of the game like you could in last year's game. This Play the Moments feature is kind of cool. I will check it out. Not sure how much I'll like it or how much I'll actually use it in Madden 17. But it should make the franchise mode accessible for players who want an organized, short experience, and hopefully it functions well. Next up, we have game planning and a lot of things that you will see in my upcoming franchise mode series. Game planning. Know your opponent's tendencies every week, then pick the right drills to attack and counter those tendencies in-game. This new level of strategy delivers more variety and more fun when preparing for your next opponent. Whether it's a user or the CPU, once you're in-game, expect to see a team boost for those plays you practiced, helping you earn that critical score or a defensive stand to secure the win. So the next section is choosing your game plans. Each week, you will choose an offensive and defensive game plan. The initial game plan is determined based on your opponent's tendencies, but you can switch to a different one when you see fit. Each game plan is associated with an in-game drill that will teach you how to succeed, and then based on your performance will give you a gold, silver, or bronze medal. The medal determines how many experience points and in-game boosts your players will have for that week. Each game plan will give XP to 2 position groups. For example, many passing game plans benefit your quarterback and wide receiver groups, while many rushing game plans benefit your halfback and offensive line groups. This is a cool feature. It adds some context to who you're going to be playing this upcoming week, and where I see this being interesting is down the road in your franchise. Beyond the first couple seasons, maybe teams have a scheme change, and you no longer know, like, what do the Saints run anymore? Are they still doing their zone blitzing like they say here? They zone blitz 21% of the time. Maybe those things change. So this is a cool way to see what your opponent focuses on and try to get better at things that can help you work around the way they tend to play. You'll get XP for those position groups you focus on and in-game boosts. And here is the section on that. At the beginning of each game, you will be notified of the active boosts, which are tied directly to the game plans you chose. For example, if you choose the vertical passing offensive game plan, then your players will have ratings impacted anytime you call a vertical pass play during that week's game. And that's a cool feature. You focus on something during practice, you hope that your players can better execute it in the game, and they get a little boost when you are adhering to your game plan. It gives you a reason to have a game plan and to follow it. Back to the article, it's the same for defense. For example, if you choose the Cover 2 defensive game plan, then your players will have ratings impacted anytime you call a Cover 2 play during the game. Plays that are boosted are highlighted in green in play call. You'll also be able to see the active boost in the previous play widget. So here is the screenshot. You can see this team focused on the drive concept, and the quarterback gets +1 throw power, +1 throw accuracy mid, the tight end gets +1 catching and +1 route running, and you see how the defense is affected as well. These are just +1 boosts, and I'm not sure if they can be greater, but at least it's going to be balanced in a way where you don't just focus on a game plan and all of a sudden your players have transformed into something they weren't before. And keep in mind, obviously, these are weekly game boosts, and so they're not going to be permanent. Tendencies is the next section. The offensive and defensive tendencies of your opponent are tracked week to week, giving you the information you need when selecting your game plan. Does your opponent bring the blitz, or does he or she play man or zone coverage? It will be easy to tell with the tendency information, and we saw that earlier with the Saints screenshot. They zone blitz 21% of the time, and so it focuses on the smash concept. I like this game planning, and now we go on to player focusing. To give you more control on how your team develops, you will select 3 players to focus on each week. These players will get extra XP so they can develop into the players you need for your team. For example, the Bucks and Titans can use this to help their second-year quarterbacks, while the Jags can focus on developing their young defense by selecting Ramsey and Jack. At the beginning of each season, the initial focus players are the top 3 players picked up in the draft, but you can adjust this to focus on who you feel is most important. I am interested in seeing how the XP works for these players because you don't get a lot of game prep in Madden 16, and I typically do spread it between 6 players because I have a lot of young talent in my Jaguars franchise, but I do often feel like that spreads me too thin and not enough actually happens with those players. They get a few ratings up, but I want to see what this focus training, what this results in. And the last section of this article talks about game plan strategies, which basically gives you ideas of how you can use your game planning. You can try countering opponents' strengths, you can do what you do well and just focus on your game plan, or you can just focus on game plans that give XP to positions you want to upgrade. So that's it for this first article. Now we get to the second one, and I do think this second one is a little bit more exciting, and it's going to be a lot more stuff you're going to see in my upcoming franchise series on Madden 17. There is information obviously in the article, but also some information you can deduct from the screenshots themselves. So let's get into it here. This section is all about big decisions, and as the owner or the guy calling the shots of the team, you got to make decisions about who's starting, who you're going to try getting a big contract to, and it starts off by talking about your season goal. So you're setting your season goal, whether you want to try making the playoffs, set a very high expectation, or you can set a low expectation if your team is bad. The choice you make has an impact, since if you miss your season goal, you have a chance of getting fired. But the harder the goal, then the higher the experience point gain will be. So some risk reward there. If you want those better packages, you're going to have to get XP and maybe take a chance to do so. I like going for the scouting points, the extra XP from game prep, I believe it is, and then sometimes you can focus on a position group or re-signing influence, retirement influence. I want to see if they have some new packages in there, but this is a different way to acquire XP based on your season goal. I like that you can set your own goal and have that expectation. But then you also have something that made me very excited. Once I saw this, I read through the franchise info, and this is one of the biggest things I wanted to see. Injuries are such an important part of the league, and the next man up mentality is there for a reason. You have 22 starting players, guys get hurt, your depth is important, and so you have big decisions regarding injuries. Will you want this player to return early? And here is the information. Once doctors have medically cleared a player that was hurt earlier in the season, you can either play him with a lingering injury or sit him to heal to 100%. If your player plays a game with a lingering injury, then he has a higher chance of becoming re-injured, which could completely wreck the rest of your season. If you go with your backup, he will earn extra XP that will help him with long-term development. While in game, you'll see new presentation banners that highlight your injured players. You will even see a with and without comparison banner showing how your team did the last few weeks with your backup quarterback compared to your regular starter. So in this example, we have Raiders left tackle Donald Penn, and his injury was broken ribs. He is ready to go in 2 weeks, it looks like, but the next game is against the 4-0 San Diego Chargers. So do you play Donald Penn here? Well, if you do, his injury rating goes from 89 to 75, his stamina goes from 79 to 67, and his strength goes from 92 to 78. So you can play Donald Penn or play Matthew McCants, who has allowed 9 sacks, but he does earn double game XP, and so will your coach if he plays. There is more I would like to see with injuries in Madden, but I'll talk about that more after I talk about all the news and then recap. There are more big decisions. The next one is acquisitions. Picking up free agents and players on the trade block is easier than ever with the new acquisitions menu. You will be able to easily browse the available players by position and compare them to your current depth chart. Improve your weakest positions quickly by using the position grades that are right at your fingertips. Expect the commentators during the game to call out recently acquired players when they make big plays. From the screenshot it appears here you can scroll to the right and look at other free agents. It's just a different interface for doing so. But the big takeaway here is honestly just the contract demand. 73 overall wide receivers are not asking for $2.1 million in Madden 16. I have wanted to see players who are rated outside the 90s ask for more money when you have like a mid-80s player. I'm not sure what Marvin Jones is rated, but he signed a 5-year, $40 million contract with a different team. And that's what happens a lot of times with expiring free agents that aren't in that top tier. They get paid big by another team, and that can't happen in Madden unless they're asking for a lot of money and reject your lowball offer. I know we think about big ways the game can change, but simply asking for more money, these players asking for bigger contracts that are more appropriate, can change the entire mode for you. It can change the entire construction of your team. It can change the length of your rebuild. It can change the way you draft. So I want to see these guys ask for more money. And so seeing these 73s ask for 2.1, I like that. And now we get to the re-signing. And before I get into the information, just look at what Shaq Barrett is asking for. $25.7 million with an $8.1 million signing bonus over 5 years. This for an 83 overall outside linebacker. This is exactly what I was talking about. Shaq Barrett, good player. Certainly not top tier, he's an 83 overall. But that's a lot of money for an 83 overall. The amount of money another team that's desperate for a pass rusher might be willing to pay. This is a situation where you might look at it and say, I don't want to pay this much. And that's how you lose mid-tier free agents. This is how it should be. This is just a perfect example. Another team is desperate, he's 23 years old, he's talented, he can still get better, so sign him to a deal now, maybe he gets even better. This to me, there's a lot of stuff I'm talking about here today, but this to me is the biggest game changer for franchise mode. If we have these guys asking for these type of contracts, that's going to be much more realistic, and it's going to change how teams are built, how long it takes, and how long players actually stay on your team. This is a $33.8 million contract over 5 years, so between $6 and $7 million a year. And that would put him in line with guys like DeMarcus Ware, Whitney Merciless, and Brandon Graham. So now let's actually get into the information here. When your players are on the last year of their contract, you can now re-sign them using a more intuitive menu. All the information you need to decide if you want to retain the player is available. The more prominent players will be open to negotiations earlier in the season, with the lower rated players available to sign late in the season after they've had a chance to prove themselves on the field. It's up to you to decide how aggressive you want to be when offering a contract, but giving a contract that is too low carries the risk that they may reject your team and opt to test the free agent market instead. As you persuade your players to re-sign, the commentary team will take notice and mention it during the game. This is one of those things I'm definitely going to be testing. I want to find those expiring contracts on players who are in like the mid-80s. So enough about this section, we'll go on to spending XP. Your players progress through the season as they earn experience points from training and by completing weekly game goals, drive goals, fantasy goals, season goals, and career goals. So fantasy goals, I've never heard of that. We'll see what that is eventually. You will be able to easily spend this XP to upgrade ratings and traits at the end of each game. Quickly see who earned the most XP on the defensive and offensive side. When there are at least 3 key position-specific ratings available to upgrade, the player will show up in the recommended list where you will be able to easily choose which rating to upgrade. When playing as a coach, you will see a breakdown of all the XP you earned that week too. You can easily see if you have an upgrade available and quickly take action. So this here isn't like a big change, it's a new interface, and it's helpful to see who has the most points to be spending, but it's not like a big change. It's just kind of tied into this big decision theme they have here, as is kind of the next stage, cutting players. I like the interface here, it's clean. During the preseason, you will now be presented with a new menu layout where your coaches will recommend players to cut based on position depth and player skills. This allows you to make key decisions about player retention quickly so you can progress through the preseason. So we've always had to cut players in preseason, and now there's just going to be some feedback from the coaches and a nice menu for it to do it. So not a big change. And then we go to big decisions, free agent bidding. While bidding for players in the offseason, you will now be able to easily see your depth chart at the various positions so you know who to bid on. Additionally, you will get feedback on how the player views your contract so you can adjust it to have a better chance of landing him. Top rated free agents will now regularly sign quickly so you can spend the latter stages battling over the next tier players. This better emulates real life where the top free agents move off the board quickly. This is a good change here. They've done a lot to revamp free agency over the past like 5 or 6 years. It's changed, the systems have changed, and here it's not clear how much of the previous system carries on. Because in 16, players are picking teams based on location, salary length, contract value, signing bonus, scheme, team need. Am I missing anything there? Maybe I am. I'm not sure how much of that is impacted with these top bids. You obviously have points, and I guess if you see view bid details, it would go into more depth there, but you just don't see from this one screenshot. So here we see the demand for Tyrann Mathieu, whose fair offer is 71.3 over 6 years. And in this situation, the Rams made that offer, and they're still only in 4th place. This is just like my last offseason where the Dolphins were trying so hard to get safeties. So there you can see 87 points to 104. I like that comparison. So now you see just how far away you are from other teams also bidding. That's a change from 16. And I'm guessing that there are a lot of things that go into the points. And that's probably the same things I talked about earlier. Another cool thing to point out here, Harrison Smith, 97 overall. That's what I'm talking about. But next up, we have community requests. They have added a few more things, including a score ticker at the bottom of the gameplay screen, full player editing, practice squad, and more. What's the big one there I'm excited about? Doesn't take too much to figure it out. Practice squad, obviously. But we get this around the league score ticker. While playing the game, you will see score updates occur from games around the league. For example, if you're playing a 1 p.m. Sunday game, you will see score updates and stat lines for all the other 1 p.m. games. If you're playing a Monday primetime game, you will see final scores tick by for all the other league games. If you're playing in a cloud league with your friends, their played games will be treated like every other game. The ticker still gives you updates on goal progress when relevant too. There is a setting to show everything, just scores, goal updates, or nothing, so you can customize it as you see fit. This is very nice to see how other teams are doing around the league, especially your division rivals if they're playing at the same time. Next up, you have full player editing. As the commissioner in your league, you now have the ability to customize almost everything about the players. You will be able to adjust appearance, ratings, traits, and contract information for the entire league. In a cloud league, other members can keep an eye on the commissioner since each player edited will show up in the transaction log. And then we get to practice squad. Each team now has a 10-man practice squad that they can control week to week. It all starts in week 4 of the preseason. Instead of cutting players, you can now easily move eligible players to the practice squad, where they will develop as you train the various position groups during weekly training. These practice squad players are available in free practice, so you can test them out on the field. At any point during the season, you can pull up a player from the practice squad to your active roster, or vice versa. Only players with less than 2 full years of NFL experience are available to move to the practice squad, so you won't be able to stash your veterans on it. The practice squad is the place to develop younger players into guys that can have an impact on your team during game day. Just like in the real world, your practice squad players are free agents and can be poached by other teams for their active roster. I have really wanted practice squad for a while, and now I'm going to have 10 extra players that I can talk about and work on developing to maybe become members of the active roster. That's awesome. Next up, dynamic development trait, and this is a nice change for the mode. Each player's development trait is the biggest defining factor in how he develops. Players with a superstar trait will stay in the league longer and develop into the top tier talent, while players with the slow trait will not make it in the league long. You will now be able to see it quickly on the player card with prominent placement and a new icon. So we know that this development trait is very important. It helps players get more XP if they have superstar or quick development, But what's cool now is it's going to be dynamic. And as they mention here, if a late round draft pick has a breakout season and wins Offensive Rookie of the Year, he will most likely go up a development trait level. Actually, any major season award and weekly award will have a chance of increasing it. What goes up must come down. Once a player fails to reach their season goals, they have a chance of dropping down a development trait level. This fluidity makes sure the league is an organic system that reflects player performance, and that's what's important. You want performance to dictate how good these players are. You want performance to impact ratings, and you certainly want performance to dictate how well those young players are developing. This has definitely come a long way from the dreaded potential rating that I hammered until it was taken out. Up next, we have Regression Feedback. As a coach or owner, you need to have a pulse on your team's development, and you need to know exactly when your team regresses, and now you will in Madden 17. Anytime a player on your team regresses during the season or at the end of the season, you will be prompted with a detailed report so you can calculate your next move. What's interesting here is that it can happen during the season as well. Look at Eugene Sims here, for example. He's now 31 years old, 70 overall. His ratings are going down because he's getting older, but also his power move and finesse move have gone down because he's not getting as many sacks. His performance is suffering, therefore his ratings follow suit. I like that a lot. And the last section here is player card improvements. The player card has been bolstered with 3 key improvements. The first is a way to quickly see all the attributes for a specific player and how they rank in the league based on overall rating. The second is a view so you can see the progression history for that player. This lets you see where all the XP came from and when ratings have been impacted, whether through progression or regression. Last but not least, the player card is now accessible from more areas, so you will always be just a step or two from seeing the information you want. What it doesn't say on here, however, is whether Joe Flacco is an elite quarterback. But it does say he's the 27th ranked in terms of overall rating. And you can see his traits, his ratings. Nice stuff here. So that is all the information from these 2 articles. There was a lot to talk about, and now I'll give you my thoughts. There were some good additions in here that I've been waiting for. A bigger emphasis on injuries and how those affect player performance, but I still want to see that go a step further with more minor injuries, that maybe just a guy has a very minor injury, but it could get worse if he plays. Maybe you're best off just benching him this week. I want to see things like that. We have the practice squad, which could still be perfected because there isn't a waiver system in Madden yet. And so the practice squad feature isn't perfect, but it's a nice addition. It's just the way you add players to the practice squad is a little bit different than you would in the NFL because they have to go through waivers. This wasn't part of the news, but obviously it was in the screenshots. I liked seeing that the players were asking for more money, and that in itself, like I mentioned, can really change franchise mode for you. The score ticker is nice. I like the big decisions and how those are highlighted. Those interfaces are nice. The game planning is a cool way to highlight your upcoming opponents and to better prepare for the way they play. And the game planning is also going to be helpful just for upgrading various parts of your roster, in addition to the 3 players that you're specifically highlighting each week. There are many good things here. There are also a lot of ways that I think this is going to be a more accessible mode for casual players or those that don't have a lot of time to pour into franchise. So you have to play the moments feature, and you have just these interfaces that are meant to make things very clear and concise and simple so you can get to the next step. All in all, I would say this is good information. I would have liked to see a few more features be prioritized. I've seen mixed reactions so far from other people that have talked about this news. There are still many things the community wants that aren't in this information, such as restructuring contracts. That's a very important one. Perhaps the biggest one is formation subs. I really want to see that get in the game because it's a very important feature for players like me. Overall, I am happy with these changes. I just want to see them continue to get better year over year. I do think franchise will be better in Madden 17 with just a few of these features. And the big one, obviously, just asking for bigger contracts. That changes the dynamic of franchise, at least for me, and I'm sure many others. But what do you think? Let me know down below in the comments section. That is it for the news today. please leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe for more Madden 17 news videos and all the other content that I do between this channel and my second channel. I will see you guys next time. Have a great day.